Plenty of news to discuss this week. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. Got a pretty full agenda for this week's rugby news. So first off, we're going to talk about the Under-20s Rugby World Cup, then the Rugby Championship that kicked off last weekend. Next, Alun Wyn Jones moving to Toulon. Stuart Hogg announces his retirement. There's a new international competition on the horizon, and the URC have announced their fixtures for the 2023-24 season. So let's start with the Under-20s Rugby World Cup. So last time that we looked at this, we had one set of pool fixtures to go. We've had those last set of pool fixtures and the first set of knockout fixtures as well. So starting off, we had Italy 17, Georgia 30. So Georgia did really well there, got themselves a bonus point win and put themselves in with a chance to make the semi-finals, depending on how the other result in their pool went. Next, I'm in Ireland 47, Fiji 27. Fiji actually made this one, a bit of a scrap for Ireland. They held on in there, just wouldn't go away, and it was just towards the end that extra fitness came through for Ireland. So similar to what often happens at senior level as well. So it'd be interesting to see with the likes of Fiji how they would go if there was a regular under-20s competition for them to compete in, so they keep their squad together. Then we had Australia 22, England 22. So this one went back and forth. Australia scored a try right to death to level up the scores, but then missed the conversion that actually would have won it for them and put them in with a chance to qualify for the semi-finals. Then we had New Zealand 62, Japan 19. So New Zealand gave themselves every chance to make that semi-final as well, scoring plenty of tries. So one thing we know about New Zealand at any level is that even when their teams aren't up to their high standards, they're still capable of producing stuff like this because they've just got so much raw talent available to them. Japan, not so much. I talked about before how it's going to take a number of years for that talent that has been inspired by the 2015 and the 2019 Senior World Cup performances to come in there and to add some kind of more depth on the domestic scene and then make them more competitive at this level. Next time we have France 43, Wales 19. So, France, I think so far the most impressive team in the competition. Won their pool fairly handily actually, and this just put the icing on the cake to put them through as number one seeds into the semi-finals. Wales, I have to say, they probably performed above expectations. Like they kept in the match for a while and they got themselves a few tries as well. And given how they performed in the under-20s Six Nations, I think they didn't embarrass themselves in this Rugby World Cup. Then the final of the pool games, we had South Africa 24, Argentina 16. Argentina started this one really well. They got themselves into a lead, but then South Africa towards the end just ground them down, and some really good tries from them as well, like backs and forwards playing together. And I'm going to say probably it was their best performance of the tournament there to get themselves into the semi-finals. They took the final semi-final spot and they just edged out Georgia. When I was watching it, I thought that maybe they would need a bonus point because their points difference was worse than Georgia. But when it's a draw at this level, it's actually head-to-heads that matter. And South Africa won that head-to-head game, so they go through to the semi-finals. So after that, then the pool stages look like this. So Pool A, you had France on top there with 15 points, 3 from 3. As I said, number one seeds, they went into the semi-finals. New Zealand missing out on a semi-final berth on points difference. Then Wales and Japan taking up the other slots. Japan, unfortunately, as I said, not competitive really at this level, didn't get a single match point. On to Pool B then. Ireland won the pool despite that, opening draw against England with 13 points. England, their draw against Australia was enough to get them to 10 points overall, and then their for and against points difference was enough to edge out New Zealand and put them into the semi-final. Australia missed out. Winning the game against England, probably wouldn't have been enough for them anyway, because they wouldn't have had that bonus point to get up to the same level as New Zealand, but they gave it a go, and they didn't. It wasn't a great Australia under-20s team, but you can see that there are talented players in it. I think that's what Australia kind of have, is that there's always kind of raw talent knocking about. They just generally at this level, a lot of time lack a little bit of structure and maybe some leadership with their players as well, and maybe just a little bit of nous, and obviously not the depth that another kind of team like New Zealand, who always have raw talent, have as well. Fiji, as I said, they put it up to Ireland, and they really put up to most of the teams when they played them as well. So again, a team that could do with a lot of support to kind of help them to improve at this level. Into Pool C then, this is a very tight affair. Came down to the final game. South Africa edging out Georgia, and as I said, they've actually got a worse for and against difference, but because they won that head-to-head, they finish top and they go into the semi-finals, and Georgia then went into that 5th to 8th playoff. Argentina and Italy both finishing on 5 match points, but Argentina just edging them out in the end. So then we had, as I said, the first round of knockout fixtures as well. So we'll have a look at those. So first off, kind of towards the minor places, we had Italy 26, Fiji 41. So Fiji went on to the 9th and 10th playoff final, yeah. And it was Argentina that are going to play them. They beat Japan 45-20. Again, Japan, even when compared to teams that were kind of at a similar level to them in terms of where they finished, still kind of struggled a little bit. But maybe they have a chance against Italy in that 11-12 playoff. We'll have to see. Then moving up a little bit for the 5th to 8th places. So New Zealand 35, Australia 44. So Australia edging out New Zealand, and again, not a vintage side for New Zealand, and Australia probably their best performance of the tournament. They did well to get that draw against England. They did well in the first half against Ireland as well, but this one, they really showed that, they're kind of developing. And again, if they had more time together, if there was under-20s Rugby Championship, maybe you would see these guys being better prepared coming in for this, and maybe that they wouldn't, they maybe go a little bit further. Then we also had Georgia 21, Wales 20. So great result for Wales, given how competitive Georgia were in their pool, and Georgia were basically, the seeded team compared to those two in terms of where they finished in their pools. But Wales go on to that, 5th and 6th playoff against Australia, and I think that'll be a pretty good match between those two. Georgia will play New Zealand for 7th and 8th. Then into the semi-finals themselves, so we had Ireland 31, South Africa 12. So South Africa, kept onto Ireland in the first half really early. It was scoreless for a lot of the game. South Africa doing really well on defence. Ireland finally broke them down to a score, but then South Africa hit back, and then it was only towards the end then that Ireland started to stretch away. Some of their especially the back row, really stepping up, and like the likes of Gleeson I think got absolute worthy of a try off a set move, just went through the heart of the South African defence and bumped a few people off. Looked like a couple of people didn't want to tackle him, but went over and scored. And then Ireland just in the end, the quality came through for them. But fair play to South Africa, showing that pride and not wanting to kind of check out of their home World Cup, without putting up a fight. Then the other semi-final, we had France 52, England 31. So England started this one off really well, went 17-0 up. France though come back at them, and then it kind of went back and forth for a bit, and then France pulled away in the end. As I said, France definitely looking the pick of the sides. Ireland, I felt, if they played the way that they did against South Africa, against France, they probably would have been in trouble in the first half and found it hard to come back over the top of them. I thought that Prendergast for Ireland at 10, he had a better game kicking from the tee, but not so good. Maybe his all-around play, a little few mistakes, some kind of duff kicks from hand as well. But he's a young guy. He will develop. He's not the finished article, but he will have to bring his A game. He'll have to play the way he did in the Six Nations to, I think, guide his team to a title, because I think France are probably going to be the favourites for that final. We will have a preview of the final and coverage of the final in a standalone video as well at the weekend. Next, we're going to go on to the Rugby Championship. I already covered this kind of more extensively over the weekend. I had previews and reviews of each of the games, so I'm not going to go through a huge amount on them. The results for the weekend, we had South Africa 43, Australia 12. So South Africa, just kind of blew them away and just kept on adding on scores. And by the time Australia got on the board, it didn't really matter. Like, you knew that they weren't coming back at them. And then Australia got a late try as well, like the last try of the game, to make it look a little bit better for them. But it really was a great performance from South Africa. And I felt that, Manny Lebok at 10 did really well in his first start. I don't know whether that's going to earn him a start against New Zealand next week or not. Like, some of the South African front first choice players went over to New Zealand before this game to actually prepare, so it wasn't a full strength box side, but it certainly had enough for Eddie Jones's Australian team. Eddie not too happy in the press conference afterwards, because somebody asked him, what did he still want to play the box first side, because the B team absolutely slaughtered him. He didn't take kindly to that. Like, sometimes Eddie loves to give it out, but at other times he can't take it. And I think if you're that type of personality, you have to have thick skin and be able to, like, I'm not the type of person who would kind of make those kind of statements, because I know I can't take that kind of stuff, if you know what I mean. And because I know that it can be hurtful, I don't say it to other people, but he has no problem saying it, so he should be able to take it too. Argentina 12, New Zealand 41 then in the other one. New Zealand pretty comfortable, got out to a fairly big lead, kind of very similar to South Africa's game. Got out to a lead. By the time Argentina scored, it didn't matter, the game was over, and then they kind of cruised towards the end there. There was a bit of controversy after the game though. Sam Kane, supporter, came on the field and he tripped them up. So not a good look for him. He came out and apologised for it afterwards. Probably just a bit of a brain fart from him, honestly. Didn't get a sanction for it either. But on the pitch, I thought he had a really good game for New Zealand. Obviously, Surveyor was good there as well. And Brazil, actually, the back row went really well. So that back row between South Africa, I think, is going to be pretty tasty, because the likes of Peter Steph-Toy and Vermeulen, I thought, were pretty quiet in the first half, and then come into the second half, and you could see that they were kind of finding their legs again at test level. But yeah, that's going to be an epic clash, and we'll have a preview of that later on in the week. In terms of the standings then, you got South Africa there at the top Just that little bit of points difference, 31 positive to New Zealand's 29, keeping him on there, and Argentina just above Australia by the same margin at the bottom. So that is that one. And then the fixtures, if we look at for next weekend, so we got probably almost certainly going to be the decider for where the title goes, which is New Zealand versus South Africa, and then we have Australia versus Argentina, which will probably decide who's going to finish bottom of the log. Next, we got Alun Wyn Jones signing for Toulon. So he's been signed as what's known as a medical joker for the duration of the Rugby World Cup. So he announced his retirement from international rugby earlier on in May, and a lot of disarray going on in the Welsh Rugby World Cup squad. So obviously means they're guaranteed to make the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup, because for some reason that's how Welsh rugby works. But yeah, been signed for Toulon. Going to be playing from mid-August until the end of the Rugby World Cup. I think it's a great move for him, kind of probably finishing up his playing career there. A few months over there, some nice weather, and it's a great club and a great place to go to as well. So best of luck to him on that. I think it's, as I said, I think it's an excellent move for him. Next, then we have the retirement of Stuart Hogg from rugby entirely. So basically, Stuart Hogg just come out and said, I've been trying to get ready for the Rugby World Cup, and my body's just not responding the way I want, and I'm retiring with immediate effect. So he did put out a statement, and I'll read that out for you now. So he said, "It is difficult where to start, but with great sadness and an enormous amount of pride, I'm announcing my immediate retirement from playing rugby. I fought with everything I had to make the Rugby World Cup, but this time my body had not been able to do the things I wanted and needed it to do. We knew this day would come eventually. I just never thought it would be this soon. It's hard to put into words just how much of an impact the game has had on my life. I will be retiring knowing that I've given my body and heart to rugby. I will be forever grateful to this amazing community and cannot wait to begin my journey as a proud supporter of the team." And Gregor Townsend also came out and said, wished him all the best in his retirement, and said that he was an outstanding player for Scotland and he had so many achievements, highlights and special moments. So Hogg, as an international, he had over 100 caps for Scotland in his career. He was the record try scorer as well for Scotland. And, the guy, he was electric. When he was at his top, like, if you kicked the ball to him and it was loose, you knew he was running it back at you, and you knew he was probably going to do something special as well. Like, he really is a special talent. And the world of rugby, Glasgow Warriors, the Chiefs as well that he played for, people who got to watch him kind of live. I think he's one of those special players that he's worth going to see on his own when he's at his best. And yeah, rugby's going to miss him. Rugby World Cup is going to be, just that little bit less special without him being there. I talked about, during the Six Nations as well, with players being injured, that I wanted to see everyone being able to come back for the Rugby World Cup, because you want to see the best players playing there. As an Ireland fan, I'm not thinking, oh, that's good for Ireland because Scotland don't have Stuart Hogg there. I'm thinking that's bad for rugby because a special player won't be at the World Cup. Now, in fairness, people might say, well, maybe he wasn't going to be a starter in important games for Scotland because he was kind of under pressure for that spot at 15, obviously because of his injury struggles, but still, you can't deny that he was a special player when he was fit and when he was on his game. Next, then, we're going to talk about the new international rugby competition. So there was an announcement from basically World Rugby, but it says the Six Nations Rugby and Sanzer are set to launch a new international rugby competition. they're working in partnership to establish a new international rugby competition due to start in 2026. The new competition will take place in the existing July and November international windows. So that means no more tours to countries, which is a big miss, I think, from my point of view. And then the November internationals, instead of being kind of invites, will be fixed fixtures. So for me, I'm not too happy about it. But we'll read the rest. All of the Six Nations Rugby and Sanzar teams will compete in the new competition and joined by 2 invitational unions. I think that is Fiji and Japan, right, to start, I think. For that, I could be wrong, but I think those are the 2 who are going to get invited. Six Nations Rugby and Sanzar will own and operate this elite competition, so they're basically benefiting from the money. I can see why they're doing it, because it's more money for them, basically playing tier 1 teams all year round and not having to play any tier 2s and take less money or less TV money either. World Rugby will create a newly formed second tier competition to facilitate promotion and relegation matches. So this as well will be ring fenced until 2030, so there will be no promotion and relegation until then. So it means that, like, I talked earlier about Georgia not being serviced that well by the kind of the World Rugby or Six Nations and Sanzar in terms of their development, and this is what I talked about. Like, they're basically going to be locked out from playing any tier 1 nation outside of a World Cup for that entire period, and I don't think that's fair. I don't see how this develops the game. I see how it puts a lot of money into the coffers of the richest unions that are already there. I think it's, in terms of growing the game worldwide, though, I think it's a backward step. And the promotion relegation as well will work in terms of it there being a playoff game between the final spot team and the team that wins the tier 2 competition. There will be a tier 3 competition that will have promotion and relegation as well. And I saw kind of a flow chart of, they've got different levels with promotion and relegation between them, but I honestly don't think that this is the way forward. I think it's going to devalue the Rugby World Cup, and it's just serving the needs of the big unions, and I don't think that's the way to go. I think the way that you get better revenue for everyone is you grow the game in its entirety. You make sure that teams like the likes of Japan and Georgia and Fiji and Tonga and the US and Canada and other island teams and teams who are coming on in Europe, the likes of Spain and Germany, those kind of teams, that they're lifted up to the level of the teams that we have now, where they can actually compete and not get 100 odd points put on them. And I think this is not going to service that, but it's the way that they're going. So we'll have to see. I'm sure they're going to be exciting games, but is it worth losing tours to countries? I don't think so. Is it worth losing tier 2 teams being able to play tier 1 teams in November? I don't think so. But yeah, that's a new competition coming. As more details come out, we'll talk about it again. Then the final thing that we have is the URC fixtures have been announced for the 2023-24 season. So there's a full set of fixtures out. I'm not going to go through them all. I'll just go through the first set, and then maybe as we get closer to the season, we'll look at the fixture list in full. But it's going to kick off on October 21st due to the Rugby World Cup, so a bit of a late start. And the first round of games are going to be Zebre versus Ulster. Zebre last year in their opening game gave Leinster a bit of a scare, so if they catch Ulster cold, they might actually being with a chance to get a win, which it didn't achieve at all last season in the entire competition. Then we got Connacht versus Ospreys. I think that's going to be an exciting one because, two teams who potentially could be challengers for knockout rugby, and depending on how the start of the season goes for them, could actually have a big impact on the end of the season as well. Then we got the Lions versus the Stormers. So Stormers beating finalists, looking to start off pretty well. Lions actually found it difficult at the start of the season just gone to win at home. They actually did better on the road. So if they're going to get something out of that game, probably going to have to turn that around. Dragons versus Edinburgh. So Dragons actually started, well, not quite to start. It was when Di Flanagan took over, right, that they had that bounce. And Edinburgh actually had a good start to last season as well and fell away. So again, two teams maybe looking to get a bit of a kickstart to their season and could set them up for a nice run if they get the win. But Cardiff versus Benetton, two teams who kind of put a little bit of a run together towards the middle of the season, trying to get into those playoff spots, but then kind of fell away towards the last few rounds. And then we have defending champions Munster versus the Sharks. Sharks and Munster actually kind of similar trajectories towards the end of the season, where both of the teams came from outside of the playoffs to get themselves in, and then Munster obviously winning, they'll want to get the defence of their title off to a winning start in that one. I'm not sure where that one is, actually. It doesn't say. It could be in Musgrave Park rather than Thomond Park, but we'll have to see. And then we have the final games on the Sunday. We've got the Bulls versus Scarlets. So, tough start for the Scarlets there, I feel. Bulls, that they were pretty good all throughout the season, but just don't quite have it in knockout rugby, it feels. Similar with Glasgow as well. They entertain Leinster to start with. Leinster, who, almost had an unbeaten season, at least in the regular season, but lost that one against the Bulls right at the end. But Glasgow, at home is going to be a tough ask for them starting out, and they could actually start their season with a loss right off the bat. But yeah, those are the starting fixtures. As I said, we will kind of look a bit more in depth to them as we get closer to the start of the season. But that is the end of this week's rugby news. We'll have more rugby news next week. I'm trying to get a set day for this, but it's kind of difficult with the way things are, getting time to record and then getting all the stuff together for the actual recording. And so I'll try and find a day that it sits on. I think Tuesday or Wednesday, kind of middle of the week, might be better depending on when news comes out. And then at the weekend, we will also have build up for the Under-20s Rugby World Cup final and each of the Rugby Championship finals, fixtures, and then we'll have reviews of each of those fixtures as well.